Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my good friend, my buddy, my pal, the guy that looks kind of like Rob Lowe himself. It's Matt. Matt, what's going on, man?
Oh, Mark, not too much. I don't know where you keep getting this Rob Lowe from.
I'm telling you, dude.
I don't see it.
I'm telling you. St. Elmo's Fire, man. Get that saxophone back out from middle school days, man, and just blast us a tune. I'm telling you. All right?
Hey, if everybody doesn't have to listen to me talk, I'm sure they'd much rather hear me play the saxophone. I don't do well, so that'll give you any indication of what we're dealing with here. But Mark, I'm doing great, man. How are you tonight?
Man, I'm doing really, really good. It's a great night. Another, we talk about the weather every episode, and I hate doing that, but I love doing it because, man, it is fall here in Kentucky, and I'm thrilled. And I know you are too, Matt. You're wearing pants again. Thank God you're wearing pants again for this episode. It's so good to have you back wearing clothes again for the podcast. But we are social distancing in the same location. At least Matt and I are. Our guest is actually in the same state this time, which is really cool. So we're happy about that. But before we jump into that surprise, let's thank our sponsors. So we got to thank the Stave Restaurant out in Millville, Kentucky. Chef Jonathan Standing out there prepares just amazing meals. Check them out online at thestavekentucky.com. You can go out, visit them, order online, pick up to go. You can have dinner, lunch out there with them, have brunch on Sunday, and I think maybe Monday. They got live music Friday and Saturday nights out there. I took my wife out there weekend before last, for her birthday celebration. We had a great time sitting on the deck by Glens Creek. Beautiful lighting out there, little waterfall. It's awesome. So check them out. And then also Pinhook Bourbon, our newest sponsor. So we're thankful to have them on board as a sponsor. Really appreciate them. We had Sean on the show a couple months ago, and just a great group of people. So we enjoy what they have, the bourbon and the ryes that they have. So check them out online as well at pinhookbourbon.com. So Matt, now that I got that out of the way, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. Tonight on the Bourbon Life Podcast, well, tonight for us, it could be this morning for you all, or this afternoon for anybody listening. But anyway, joining us on the Bourbon Life Podcast is the master taster from Old Forester, Jackie Zykan. Jackie, welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I have so many questions based on that intro. Things now that I'm curious about the pants. I'm curious about the Rob Lowe, but we're here to talk about the whiskey. So eye on the prize. We'll just focus on that.
That's a great plan. I would much rather talk about the bourbon than talk about my pants or Rob Lowe.
Well,
fair enough.
Yeah.
The good thing is, Jackie, all you can see, is from his neck up, so you don't have to worry about,
And pants are assumed, but I don't know previously, if that was. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whiskey, everyone.
We're like the Tequila Night podcast, then all bets are off for pants, but this is the Bourbon Life, so
that's when I get
our pants on tonight.
Yeah, the Tequila Bird podcast. That's where you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right? So,
yeah.
All right, so let's jump in before we do what we always do and forget to talk about what we're drinking, Matt. So let's talk about what we're going to drink in this first session. And actually, Jackie, we'll let you, since this is your baby, if you want to, tell everybody what we've got here.
Sure. So we're doing 1910. We're doing Childs. I know you're supposed to love all your kids equally. I get it, but let's be honest, it's fine. So we're going to be sipping on the 1910 for this first go around. And I could not be more excited. I love when people want to do this one. It's the most recent release of the Whiskey Row series, but we've done so many things since then that it's not really a new product. There might be some listeners, though, that to you it is new because it isn't in every market yet. It's actually the hardest to find of the Whiskey Rows. And that's not on purpose. We just really did a very poor job of figuring out how good it was going to be and how well received it was going to be. So we're working on it. We've laid more down. It's there. It's cooking for you. But if you have it in your glass, I already have it in mine. I'm going to go ahead. Cheers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cheers. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Matt, go ahead, Jackie. Yeah. You tell us.
No, go ahead, please.
I always jump in and, Matt spent time in the food industry. There you go. There's a Bourbon Life bingo for all you Bourbon Life bingo players at home. Matt was in the food industry. So, but he's got a better palate than I do. So I always defer to him in terms of what he picks up. So Matt, what do you pick up on this one?
I pick up the corn and the sweetness that I get from it. I'm also getting a lot of cherry and a nice, the oak is coming through and a sweetness, like a campfire. If you would ever describe a campfire as sweet, but like a smoky, nice char.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jackie, you're shaking your head like it sounds like
Matt. Make sense. So this is actually the only product that we make at Old Forester that goes through a secondary barrel finishing process. If anyone out there is familiar with the Woodford Reserve product, double oaked, it's similar to that. So we're basically taking fully mature Old Forester, throwing it into a secondary barrel after it's done and ready to go anyways, and going from there. The main difference being that the Woodford double oaked goes into a secondary barrel that's been heavily toasted. So it has not been charred whatsoever. You're just getting that super sweet butterscotchy toasty note. This goes into a secondary barrel that's been heavily charred to the point of near disintegration. So the Whiskey Row line, of course, always throws back to actual events that happened in the Old Forester history. And in 1910, down on Whiskey Row in Louisville, Kentucky, down on Main Street, there was a fire in that building in October of 1910. And they were to bottle Old Forester. And back in 1910, Old Forester was bottled in bond. So it was 100 proof. So you've got this big old tank of 100 proof ready to go Old Fo. And everyone had to get out of the building. Now, once they were actually able to get back in, they've got this big old vat of whiskey. What do they do with it? It's been sitting there. They decided to pay tribute to the fire by putting it into super heavily charred barrels they had custom made, and they let it sit there for an extended period of time. This product actually does exist, and I wish that we could let people into the distillery right now, but with COVID and all of those things, that's not an option. But if all this stuff finally passes, please come down and see us. You can see the original bottles of very old fine whiskey was what it was called. It was not sold as Old Forester because it didn't taste like Old Forester.
Right.
We basically replicated the entire process. We took Old Forester, aged it for 4 years, blended it, proofed it down to 100, filled secondary barrels that have been charred to the point of near disintegration, like I said. So that's about a full minute in the char chamber.
Wow.
Actually, our barrels only sit in the chamber for about 22 seconds.
Right.
So it sits in there for 7 to 9 months. We fight closer to the 9-month realm of that. And then we proof it down to 93 because that's where it tastes best at. So you're dead right about that campfire note. Like, you are definitely getting that super charry note. I always hearken this to being sort of like if wild turkey and Nutella had a baby, this is kind of what it tastes like. Because wild turkey always has that nice charry smoky note to it as well. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. There's so many different descriptors for this one. There's so many different elements come through. It is by far the most flavorful whiskey we have in our portfolio that you can find on a shelf. I will definitely argue that. But there's this like, you know what like stroop waffles are? Those like really flat, shaking your head. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's got that weird sort of like super candy caramel like flavor to it. You know what I'm saying? And it definitely comes through on the nose. But the chocolate note that comes through on it and the hazelnut that comes through is just insane. Cherry is definitely there. Cherry is like one of our flagship fruits for Old Forester. And it certainly rings through with this one. I love this whiskey. It is such an amazing product.
Yeah, I do too. And it's funny because, you know, I'm in all these different bourbon groups online, and, you know, people post pictures of 1920 or the 1910, or they'll talk about 1920, and I'll jump in and say, yeah, 1910 is my favorite. And, you know, some people are like, yes, it's the best. And then you got these people that are very adamant, no, 1920 is the best. So it's like this struggle between these bourbon fanatics, which one's best. And I'm usually a high proof. There's another Bourbon Life bingo, right, Matt? Yeah, I'm a high proof bourbon fan. But I like this. Yeah, you're going to ask about Bourbon Life bingo, aren't you?
I am. Like, what's the bingo thing? Please explain the bingo to me. What's up with the bingo?
We
seem to repeat a lot of the same topics or talking points, and so we have this running joke that we're going to print out Bourbon Life bingo cards, and mail them out to our fans. And every time Mark mentions something that he always mentions, they check a square. Every time I bring something up that I usually bring up, they check a square. And so we had this running joke that
I fully support this.
We're pretty.
Yeah. I'm going to figure it out. I've been thinking about how to do that and how to actually create. I'm not creative enough to come up with the little, cause I want to do it as not words, but little images or pictures or little things on the squares. So I want it to be really creative and funny. But yeah, I've been thinking about how we can do that. Cause there are certain things, you're just talking about those waffles. Matt and I we both have done an Ironman. That's another thing that we joke about. That's a Bourbon Life bingo. So I did he did Chattanooga and I did Ironman Louisville back in 2013, but I trained and those honey waffle stingers, they were just those little round waffles. Those, have you ever seen those before?
No. What's a honey stinger?
It's so similar to a Stroop waffle. It might as well be the same thing.
Yeah, it's got the honey. It's like it looks like a little waffle. It's got the little pattern on it, and it's brown like a little thin waffle. But a lot of cyclists are not runners, I guess, but cyclists. I used it all the time when I was training because it's compact. You could put it in your jersey, reach in your back pocket, pull it out, and just chow it down. You could fold it however you wanted to do those little waffles. So but those are so good. I miss those.
I fully support all of this.
But now, okay, here's the fun. I'm sorry, Matt. I was just going to jump in on my taste here. I was just going to say.
I was going to bring up the same thing. So while we're on the subject of food, Mark, I know this brings up the bourbon, the 1910. You have some tasting notes on this that you are dead set on, and I think I am, man. Love to hear about it.
I pick up banana on this, okay, but not just banana, because of the toasting or the char, that extra aging in the other barrel, with that combined banana and the smokiness or something. It reminds me of when I was a kid, Little Debbie, the Little Debbie snack cakes they used to make. I don't think they make them anymore, but they were called Banana Twins, and they were little cakes. They were about 3 inches long, maybe an inch high. And it was just 2 little layers of cake, and there was like a banana cream filling in the middle of it. And I love to peel the cake off. There was a process. You peel the cake off, you eat the cake by itself, and then you lick the cream and eat that, and then you eat the other little sponge cake. So this reminds me so much of Little Debbie Banana Twins. To me, this is like a dessert. For me, it's a nice dessert type of bourbon. So that's why I love this. And like I said, I'm usually a high proof bourbon drinker, but this stuff I could drink it anytime. It's delicious.
I completely agree with you. There are so many different notes there, and I love that you shared that experience. That's the best part about tasting whiskey, is that it triggers something from your memory, hopefully positive. It's there. Are they still around, these Banana Twins, or they don't make them anymore?
I don't think they do. I haven't really looked for them, but I know, I don't eat Little Debbie snack cakes anymore. but the Banana Twins were, when I was a little kid, they were one of my favorites. But that's just when the first time I tasted this, I was just like, oh my God, I'm mad. I think we might've been together actually up at Liquor Barn at their tasting bar here in Lexington, drinking this. And as soon as I tasted it, it was just took me back to childhood and Little Debbie Banana Twins, which, it's kind of funny. Well, Jackie, we usually like to let our guests kind of tell people a little bit about themselves. I know people know who you are. Most people are going to listen to our podcast. They're going to know, who you are. But can you kind of just tell everybody a little bit about your background and your history, how you got into the industry and what exactly you do as the master taster?
Sure. So I have been in the booze industry for, carry the 2.
Is this new math? Wait, we got to do new math.
15 years now. So I've been on Old Forester for over 5 years at this point as master taster. I first started with Old Forester as this kind of interesting position they created called the Master Bourbon Specialist. And it was this like hybrid role between master taster and master mixologist, because a lot of my background came from the bar side of things and from the cocktail side. And so I don't know. Prior to this job, I was a beverage director for a multi-concept group that's based here. And before that, I was a bar manager. And before that, I was a bartender working my way through a biology and chemistry degree. And so I was working about 90 hours a week. If anyone listens and you're in the industry, like that's just par for the course. Holidays don't exist. Weekends, what is that?
Right.
Whatever. And anytime there was an opportunity, because a lot of brands are based here in Louisville. Anytime there was an opportunity for somebody to come along and say like, hey, we've got this event, we need a signature cocktail, I would always raise my hand like, hey, I got you. Oh, can you go on the news and talk about it? Sure. Yeah, I got you. And so little by little, I just kind of built a name for myself in Louisville. I am a native of St. Louis. I've been in Louisville like 11 years now, I guess, is the running total. But I love it. I probably will never, I guess I can't leave as long as this role, I can't leave because the distillery is here. So I'm kind of committed to Louisville, but that's okay. I love this city. So yeah, it was definitely having a background and educational basis in a more scientific foundation combined with industry experience was what landed me in the position I'm in right now.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it's funny how many people we've talked to that have been in that type of engineering or chemical engineering or some type of scientific educational background. It's either that or they wanted to be an attorney or they are attorneys and they decide to get into making whiskey. I don't know why, but it happens, I guess. So now in your role now as master taster with Old Forester, can you kind of walk us through what that involves, what that entails and everything, and how you spend your days and time? And
yeah, I can. It's every day is completely different. So my role basically is overseeing what we call NPD, which is new product development, innovation. Chris Morris, distiller, master distiller, Brown-Forman. So he and I still work hand in hand with a lot of our expressions, but I'm slowly but surely gaining trust in my team and they're letting me kind of take over some of these. So a lot of the newer stuff is stuff that I can say, like, that was my project. That was my brainchild. It was a thought. I woke up one night and had it and now it's in a bottle and that's pretty awesome. So on any given day, I spend half my day in a warehouse pulling samples. I oversee our entire single barrel program and all the inventory for that. I am there for your sensory panels, for your quality control panels. And that's not just Old Forester. The way Brown-Forman works is we have a massive team of people and we all work together. If I have a cold or I can't taste something, that it's not like hold everything, we can't make the whiskey. It always takes a lot of opinions. We welcome a massive group of people's insights. So that's tequilas, vodkas, Jack Daniels, like all of it. So I sit in on those. Our cocktail strategy still kind of falls under me. Any PR opportunities, like stuff with you guys, like stuff like that falls under me. Designing different ways that we go about and think about it. Like if Old Forester's going to do a bingo game, like who's going to put that together? That's going to fall on me as well. So in the normal, I use quotes, normal days back in the day pre-COVID, I was on the road 50% of the time. So I would be traveling globally to go and do tastings and seminars and product introductions into markets, and then come back to Louisville and hide in the warehouse with the spiders and then get back on the road. And like, it's just the sort of back and forth. So right now I just kind of live in a screen and I make the rounds to the warehouse every week.
Wow. Yeah, that's got to be a big change from what you were doing. That's got to be
It is. And it was a relief at first, but then after a while you're like, okay, like you start getting itchy. You're like, give me back on the road, give me back on the road. I can't stand this anymore. So I look forward to us being able to travel again for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so. But so it sounds like you went from working 90 hours a week to working 120 hours a week. And
you could say that. Like when you're in roles like this, especially with a brand that's growing globally, you are spanning across time zones and there just is no shut off. You have to be very diligent about really setting your boundaries on like, this is when I am going to do things, this is when I'm not going to do things. But yeah, it's all day, all night, all the time. So that's okay. Yeah. I can't complain about it. It's the best brand in the world I could be working for. So
definitely. And I mean, and you do, obviously people forget, we look at people like you. We had Fred and Freddie Noe on the podcast and Denny Potter. We see people that are in the industry that people know, and we forget sometimes that they also have a personal life, that they have other things.
What are you talking about? that's the dream. No, you do an amazing job, and your personal life just has to go elsewhere. Like, but no, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because anytime that we've got any sort of collaborative event going on with different distilleries and different folks, and they've got all of us like together, like sequestered at some table for something, when the camera goes off, we all look at each other and like, God, we are so tired. Oh my God.
Yep.
They got me on the road. They got me going here. They got me going there. And everyone's like, I just don't even know anymore. Like, everyone is just, we call these good problems to have, you know, that it's a great industry to be in, especially now with the bourbon boom. But
Sure.
Exactly right. Like, there's a lot of demand on your time, I guess, but you make it work, and you're grateful for the opportunity. So
Sure. Well,
there's always whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Maybe not bad.
Speaking of which, we'll go back and talk about this because we are getting close to the end of the first session here. But going back to revisit the 1910, Matt, what are your final thoughts? We kind of talked about the nosing and some of the tasting notes, but what's your final thoughts on that one?
I love it. I really enjoy the 1910. I'm a fan of the 1920, just maybe a touch more, which is where Mark
you
and
like
I
it better.
differ on this one. But I do love this 1910. It's got a really sweet, caramely, toasty, charry flavor to it that I really enjoy. The nose is really, really inviting. And I'm curious, Jackie, did you have a flavor profile that you set to create with this, or were you just letting the concept drive and picking out proof for it and letting it shine by itself?
Well, that's a really good question, because innovation always stems from a different place. It just kind of depends on where it lives in the portfolio. So as far as the Whiskey Row line, obviously we stay tried and true as best we can to the historical accuracy of the event that we're actually celebrating. And so with this one, it was imperative to take the same steps that they took to create very old fine whiskey back in the day. As far as what you can do with it flavor profile wise, after you go through being mature, being batched, being proof to 100, going into a secondary barrel, at that point, you're kind of limited to just adjusting what's the filtration going to be like and what's the proof point going to be like. Mm-hmm. And so 93 is a very random number to arrive at.
Right.
Sir, I mean, we definitely, I'm like looking at the floor around me. I have like 30 bottles of Old Forester. This is the world I'm living in right now. But my neighbors are probably like, what the? It's fine. Come on.
You can say bad words too, Jackie. You can say bad words if you
I'm trying to be good today. Like, I don't know. I'm testing the waters, and if you don't give me too much leniency, it'll all come out, especially after a couple of sips. So I don't know. I think that's the most important part with whiskey, is just that making sure whatever it is in the bottle is showing its best self possible. And so after having kind of being stuck and kind of tied to the production specs of what this was going to be, it was sort of like, well, you know, you entered that second barrel at 100. So obviously you're not going to bottle this at 105 because that's physically impossible.
Right.
But you can bottle it all the way down to 86. That's as low as we go in the United States. So here's this range. What are you going to do with it? And 93 was kind of the magic number. So with the Whiskey Row line, we don't necessarily start with a target in mind. We start with production and the story of the production first. With the other expressions, it's full-fledged, just here's what I want. The stuff that I'm given a little bit more leeway with is a little bit more profile-driven as opposed to marketing spec-driven, I guess. I don't mean that in like a phony baloney way, but you know what I mean? Like the story of the product. So
sure. Well, it's a hit for me. Like I said, this is my favorite. I mean, I absolutely love the 1910 from the first time I had it, and I've had the 1920 and the 1897. We actually did the episode with the stave. We had one of the owners and the chef, and they actually brought a bottle of the 1897 with them. So I was a big fan of that. I really enjoyed the 1897. But man, this 1910, I'm telling you, it's one of my favorites. And this, like I said, to me, it drinks like a dessert wine, but it's still, I mean, a dessert bourbon. You still get all the characters of the bourbon, but you get that sweetness. And for me, like I said, that reminder from childhood of the Little Debbie banana twins.
Love it.
But I really enjoy this. So it's a winner for me.
But it's got, because of that double oak exposure, it's got such a great clean dryness on the finish.
Mm-hmm.
Is that perfect dessert bourbon where you can pair it with anything that's got a heavy fat content or heavy cream content or things of that sort. And I think it'll balance really, really nicely. Or if you, you just want to skip dessert and just have that, then perfect. It's well balanced and good to go on its own.
That works. That works for me. Well, we are at the end of session number 1 here. So what we'll do, we'll take a quick break. We'll get a word from our sponsor and we'll be right back. So everybody sit tight. We'll be back with more. Jackie, I got to ask you this. This has been puzzling me because I hear people say your name Zykan, but I thought it was Zykan. Like
Zykan, yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure because I don't like mispronouncing someone's name.
No, you're good. Matt said it perfectly right when he gave the introduction.
That's good.
See, I always wait for it. I wait for that moment of them being like, Jackie's. Say it. I'll correct you if I need to. Don't worry about that. So, but you said it right.
Awesome. Usually Mark sets me up for failure and gives me the wrong pronunciation of somebody's name if there's any question about it. He goes, "Oh man, no, I saw it on this podcast. I heard it. You say it like this. This is how you do it." And I get on and I follow his lead and I look like an ass.
Matt, I would never.
You're doing good tonight. You are winning. You're winning this evening, so don't worry about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with more with Jackie Zykan in just a few minutes. Hey, Bourbon Lifers. When you're out hunting for those hard-to-find bottles or just enjoying the distilleries of Central Kentucky, you're going to work up an appetite. And when it's time to refuel, we suggest that you visit our good friends Rebecca and Eric Burnworth at the Stave Restaurant. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, close to Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, the Stave Restaurant is just off the beaten path, nestled on the banks of Glens Creek. Chef Jonathan Sanning prepares amazing food each day featuring an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. You can take our word for it, the food alone is worth the trip to the Stave. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. And you can even purchase bottles of bourbon to take home with you while you're there. Make sure to follow the Stave on Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky, or visit them online at thestavekentucky.com to stay up to date on everything that's going on. The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. All right, everybody, welcome back for round and/or session and/or segment 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is the pants-wearing buddy of mine, Matt. Matt, what's going on, man?
Hey, Mark, not too much is going on. Just excited to be back on the air and here for session number 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. And joining us tonight, again, to our listeners out there, you don't have to listen to just Mark and I. We are so good to you. We brought a guest on, so we have got someone else to talk to you tonight, and it happens to be the master taster from Old Forester, Jackie Zykan. And she's back again for session number 2. So
Yay!
That's right. That's right. And we have got something special poured up for session number 2. So before we get 20 minutes into this and forget to talk about it, Jackie, what do we have? What do we have poured up?
You have the commemorative edition Brown-Forman's 150th anniversary release of Old Forester at your disposal there.
Very nice.
This is incredibly, incredibly special. You only turn 150 years old every 150 years or something. So don't worry about it. But this is epic. This was an amazing release. Obviously, the world is in shambles, kind of, and we meant to release this much earlier this year, but we didn't deem it appropriate to do so. So we waited until now, until full-blown bourbon season was going on. That's out there. So this was the first project that I have ever been given full reign on blend designation for. So the single barrels, I own that whole thing. Like those are my children. Those are my babies. Like, that's great. I know them very well. The other expressions, it's very much a collaborative effort. But this was the first thing where it was like, here's a scroll of bourbon barrels that Chris Morris set aside 7 years ago. And so yeah, just do something with this. So here we are. Like, now we have 3 different matches. So just like a quick overview of this. This is a one-time only release. Old Forester has had many of these throughout its lifetime because obviously it's 150 years old. We did like a 1996 release for the Olympics that some people find on eBay and then collect and what have you. It's a hot little number, just a heads up. But we do these things from time to time. But this was really important. The reason that there's 3 batches is that when Old Forester started back in 1870, it was not something that George Garvin Brown, the founder of this company, distilled. He was not a distiller. He was a medicinal salesman. He sourced from 3 different distilleries. So we figured it was best to tell our origin story by separating out into 3 different batches. So I was handed a spreadsheet with basically 150 barrels and then went and sampled each of them and put representative sample. And by that, I mean, with a laser scan, we scan the heads of barrels to figure out how much liquid's actually left in them. So I know that this barrel's got 30%, this barrel has 40%, blah, blah, blah. So when you come time to actually dump those and blend them together, you take 3 mils from this barrel, 4 mils from that barrel, 7 mils from that barrel, et cetera, to kind of mimic what that composite sample would be. Mm-hmm. So this was actually blended in my kitchen. It's funny, like I took pictures of the process. Like if people even knew like what product is like very like elite product. Like if you even knew the like weird grassroots like mechanisms here. But I wrote kind of like I just abbreviated tasting notes for every single one of these barrels to kind of group them together and be able to separate them out, because 150 barrels made on the same day, aged for the same amount of time, all next to each other. If you just slice that into equal thirds and proof them into, I mean, the proof points are different for these batches, but they're not significantly different. They're close enough where you weren't going to taste the difference if you just cut this into equal thirds and called 50, 50, 50. No. So it was very much like harnessing in any experience I've had with the single barrel program in and of itself and identifying sort of the snowflake nature of those barrels and taking them into this and sort of trying my best to make 3 very distinctive, deconstructed representations of Old Forester. So there's 3 batches. They're released wherever they're released. They come out in October. I don't know necessarily that they've made them to where all batch 1 goes to Florida and all batch 2 goes to Georgia or all batch 3 goes wherever. It's all mixed up. So like let the chase and the hunt begin, you know, it's out there. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but also you're welcome. I don't know. So yeah, but I would love for you. This is the first time you guys are tasting them. I've just rambled on and on and on. I'm very excited. This is our new shiny toy. So I'm obviously very excited about it, but I would love for us to taste through these and like, let's hit batch 1 and like,
sure. And this one is a lower proof. This was it 125.6? Is that what it says?
They're all batch proof. That's a low proof, lower being emphasis here. It's definitely lower proof. These are unfiltered. So we basically take the char chunks out and call it a day. These do not go through chill filtration because we don't filter Old Forester, but they also don't go through a carbon treatment, which is what we usually do for shelf stability. This is basically just straight out of the barrel into your bottle.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. That was,
I know.
My gosh. Yeah. Matt, have you hit that one yet? You're sniffing it.
Still sniffing on it.
I took a sniff and had
time. He's getting to know it.
Something like this only happens every 150 years. I don't want to rush it.
What's that called? A sesquicentennial?
Is that right?
Sesquicentennial? Is that right?
It's a sesquicentennial. I think it's 150 years. I think.
I'm gonna just trust you on it.
I could have just made that shit up.
Sasquatch. I'm like, okay, cool. Sasquatch Centennial is what we're going with here in Jackie.
Your Sasquatch anniversary. So congratulations on that one. So Matt, what are you getting on this?
On the nose, it reminds me a lot of the cereal Golden Grams.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. It's going to be a golden day.
It is. And
getting the sweetness off of that. I mean, I definitely pick up the sweetness, vanilla. Now you said is this 8 years old, Jackie, or is it 7 or did I?
7. We didn't list the age on the bottle, but from what I remember of this batch, it was getting up into that zone. But also important to note, not ageist at Old Forester. The only thing we release that actually has an age on it is the birthday bourbon. And then if you're lucky enough to get a President's Choice from the gift shop. But other than that, it doesn't really, it's not relevant because we do heat cycle warehousing. So right. You can add an extra 6 months of maturation for every year spent in the warehouse. So even if we throw out a 4-year-old, it tastes like a 6-year-old. So it's
right. Yeah. This is the I don't know. It's the combination of sweet and spiciness on this one. Mm-hmm. It's like brown sugar to me with a kick of like almost a cinnamon type of finish on it, and it keeps going and keeps going. I get just a nice little bit of a hug on it, not too much.
Right.
At 125.6, I think a lot of people would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's going to be so hot." It's really not. It's very, very approachable, very drinkable, and I love it when I swirl it in the glass and I just watch it, slowly form legs and run down I just love being able to see that in a bourbon. So, Matt, what about you? What else are you picking up on that?
I got a lot of cinnamon on the taste of it. The cinnamon is really coming through, and the spice is there. I can taste the heat from the proof, but it's certainly not unwelcoming. It's nice. It really is. It's like a cinnamon red hot candy. Ooh. The sweetness coming through and like a little bit of caramel, and I don't know, I still get that golden grams though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're hitting it completely on the nose. I think for the tasting notes of this one, I put graham cracker in there on the finish. This one, it had more fruit forward notes than the other ones. This one was sort of the fruit bomb, if you will, of the whole collection. The others get a little bit more spry and a little bit more spicy. But it had that, like you're saying, that sort of honeyed graham cracker note to it. A lot of maple coming through. If you add a little water back to it, if anyone listening actually gets their hands on a bottle of batch 1 of the OF 150, add a little water back, and it's one of those whiskeys that just remains so stable regardless of dilution, which is such a key factor in quality, in my personal opinion. Not every whiskey tastes great right out of the barrel. Some of them taste great at 100 proof, but everybody is open and has the fair opportunity to find that spot where they find it the most drinkable. I think the key is that with our higher proof products that we put out there, they are 100% free of any defect anyways. We're not trying to hide anything under the ethanol. There's no porcini mushroom note that, is just moldy. Right. We don't do that necessarily. So everything definitely goes through the rigor of making sure it's the best and most high quality. But this is my favorite one out of the entire collection is batch 1. It's
I was going to say,
I know.
If I'm like, this to me is, Jackie, I think, we're recording this. Well, actually, it's the final day of Bourbon Heritage Month.
It is. I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today is September 30th, the last day of Bourbon Heritage Month.
So I think if I remember correctly, because I got the email, because I have signed up for the Old Forester email list. So I get those emails. And it seems like I saw an email maybe last week that said that these would be released. I thought it said like October 1st. I don't know if that's right or not, but maybe.
Probably.
So it could be.
That's the key. Like, you got to get on the email list.
Yeah.
We sell these allocated, or however you want to term them, products through the retail shop. Obviously, we don't only sell them through them. They go out to retailers everywhere.
Right.
But like this, for example, like everyone, why don't you make more birthday bourbon? Make more birthday bourbon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. An entire year's supply of birthday bourbon is these 3 batches combined volume wise. So this is going to be really hard. It's going to be even harder to get all 3 of them. But if you do have the ability to do so, get on that Old Forester mailing list, because they will tell you exactly when they're releasing them through the retail shop. And if anyone is listening to that right now that went through the birthday bourbon extravaganza, I'm well aware that we crashed the internet with that. We had 40,000 people try to buy birthday bourbon at once. Mercy. It crashed the servers of all Brown-Forman products. That's how bad it went. And we did everything we could to turn everything off to give as much bandwidth to it as possible. We did everything we could, and we did not expect 40,000 people to try to buy birthday bourbon at once. So,
oh my gosh.
There'll be other opportunities, trust me.
Well, it's funny because last year I was going to go over there. And if I remember correctly, I think on September 1st, at like 7:00 at night, it was 95 degrees. And I thought, there is not a chance in hell of me going over and sitting on a sidewalk in a chair overnight. As much as I want the bottle, it's just not going to happen. So I thought this is going to be my year. This is going to be it, because I'm doing it online. I'm going to get that email. I'm going to hit that link, and I'm going to be the first one. And it was like, damn it.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's part of the fun. I mean, that to me is part of the fun of being a bourbon drinker and a bourbon. I mean, I'm not a collector. I like to get bottles like that, but I like to pop them and drink them with friends. I mean, that's what it's for.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's part of the fun. That's, to me, it's, Matt and I have camped out overnight for bottles before. Mm-hmm. It's just part of the fun of it, to build the camaraderie, hang out with other people, and get to experience it. And then you get that prize at the end, which is awesome, and you get to drink it. And like I said, share it with friends. But yeah, Jackie, I'm telling you, I'm going to be watching my emails in the morning and seeing, hopefully, and I'm feeling pretty lucky on this one now. But this batch one, yeah, that's right on the money right there. That's really, really good.
Yeah. The more I'm nosing it and letting it sit, the more I'm picking up that fruit. I'm getting like a lot of strawberry out of it. Which
there's really a lot of berry going on.
Yeah.
For sure.
So when you were given these 150 barrels, were you given them for any project or for this specifically?
This specifically, they were held in inventory.
Wow.
Upon their fill dates. So it was kind of like, whatever they're going to be is what they're going to be. Like, they had perfect quality ratings. So we do quality ratings at the point of distillation, and then their first check in maturation is at 6 months, just to make sure so it's a 0 to 4 scale. If perhaps a lot of distillate had maybe like a slightly like grainy note to it, or something that some people thought was kind of off, they keep that in the system and they check it back again after it's aged for 6 months to see if has that mellowed out, is it still there, blah, blah, blah. And then they taste it again at 3.5 years. So at 3.5 years is kind of when you kind of designate where these barrels are going to grow up and what blend they're going to go into. And so these barrels have been perfect quality-wise throughout the entirety of their life. It's just that they were held as like, hey, one day we're going to turn 150 years old. Here's some barrels to celebrate it. And so then we had these barrels. It was like, well, what do we do with it? I don't know. So I was like, why don't we do 3 different blends? We had 3 distilleries in 1870. Let's do 3 blends. And they're like, yeah, just take that. Just go, Jackie. I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? Like, what if they all taste the same? Like, what a joke. Oh my God. But I did my best. But we should move on. We should move on to the
second one. Let's move on to number 2. Yeah, yes, definitely. Batch number 2. And this one is a little bit higher proof, but not much. Is this 126.4? Is that right? Or it is. Gosh. 126.4, right?
126.4, yeah.
Man, I'm good. Matt, goodness gracious.
Look at you, buddy.
Look at you.
Like a steel trap up here. Yeah. All right. So moving on to this one. I don't get that. I mean, 126, I think you just automatically assume you're going to get almost overpowered or overwhelmed with an alcohol taste, or smell on the nose. And both of these, neither one of these have I picked that up on. It's been a very pleasant nose. This one seems to be, I don't want to say herbally. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but maybe it doesn't have as sweet a nose to me it's sweet, but it's not as sweet as what the first one was.
Completely agreed. That first one is definitely more sweet, aromatic, and fruit based. This one gets a little bit more into kind of tickling the rye portion of the mash bill that's going on. So you're going to get a little bit more heat expression. It's kind of more compartmentalized on the palate. The first one is pretty like solid, like it's there in the beginning, the middle, the finish. It's pretty solid all the way through. This one is sort of like it's there up front. It kind of dips and disappears, and then the finish comes back and carries you through on it, almost like a horseshoe. I don't know why I'm like describing it as a horseshoe, but that's just the vision that comes to mind. It still has all those Old Forester things. It's still got spice. It's still got there's some sweet shoved in there. But this one just did a little bit of a better job of being sort of that perky spice of Old Forester.
Sure.
we get from the 18% rye in our mash.
Yeah. And I was going to say, the first one I did, even with all the sweetness to it, Matt was talking about golden grams and the strawberries. After you said that, Matt, of course, the power of suggestion, it was like, it hit me I was like, wow, I do see where he gets strawberry. This one does have more of that spiciness from the rye to me on the finish.
For sure.
Pick that up, which I enjoy. And Matt's a high rye. There's another Bourbon Life bingo for all you people at home. Matt loves high rye, so or higher rye, and loves that spiciness from it. So Matt, what do you think? Is this one compared to the first one? What about you? What about you on this one? What do you think?
It's a unique comparison because they taste very differently the same. So I can, well, give me a second here. Give me a second.
What the hell does that mean?
Well, I can taste that there's the same backbone in them, but the characteristics and the personality is definitely different. So the first one we had, batch one, I got a lot of the golden grams and the fruit and like very pronounced flavors and strong flavors, things that for me were pretty easy to pick out. With this one on the nose, I'm having trouble finding a few different things that are really driving what I'm picking up. Like I'm getting a little bit of leather and tobacco, and then some of the rye is coming through in like a caraway, or I often say like a fresh baked bread or the smell of a bakery, just like a little bit of subtleness, but the flavor of it is where I get more of the rye coming in the flavor of this one, more of the herbal, little bit of like a zest, citrusy zest coming through in the flavor. It drinks more of the 18% rye, but I can taste that they're both cut from the same place.
That makes sense, sure. Matt. So they're differently the same. I see what you're saying now.
The same. Yeah.
You brought that home, man. You took you took a long way to get there. You took the long journey, but you did. You brought that home very nicely.
Sorry for rambling.
You're not rambling.
All good. I think there's this weird cherry taffy candy that we used to get in kindergarten. The place I went to, let's go way back to freaking kindergarten. We used to walk across the street in Florissant, Missouri, to this place called Hendel's, and they would sell like penny candy, and they would give us like X amount of pennies to like learn about money or numbers or whatever the hell, I don't know. And I would always buy this cherry candy that was probably like terrible and like ripped, but there's something about the nose of this one that has sort of that like cherry cordial, cherry taffy note to it. It's not overly fruity, but it definitely, if you were going to gravitate towards a fruit, that's what I pull on there. But it is very bright. This is a bright whiskey. This is not like a low, subdued, like very oxidized situation. This one is very, very snarky, which is great. I mean, it's very, very different from the first one, which was cool. So here we go. Pat on the back.
There you go. Yeah. Definitely pat yourself. All right. So we should probably move on to this third one. I know it's like I'm pushing through, like, come on. Let's get
this. It's okay.
Let's get this. So the third one. This is the highest proof of the three, but it's only, was it 126.6? Is that right?
It is.
Or is it 126.8? 8. Oh, damn it. Yes. That was close. All right. So only a 1.2 point difference between the first one and the third one. So obviously very, very close together there. So, all right, Matt, I see you got your nose in that one. What do you got?
Right from the start, I get juicy fruit gum.
How funny. You know?
Juicy fruit and oak. It's like a sweet and sour combo there. Almost. I mean, sweet and sour is not the right word, but just having those two flavors play off each other.
That's really funny, man. You say sweet, you said juicy fruit. I never would have picked that out and said juicy fruit, but again, power of suggestion. It's like going back to childhood, and it's like, oh yeah, I love juicy fruit gum. So yeah, I can definitely see that.
For sure. I think this one does the best job at kind of carrying through that dill note that Old Forester tends to have. It's not necessarily that spice note that we usually pull in from having that rye, but there is a fresh green herbaceous quality to it. This one has one of the coolest notes that I find in Old Forester that you do not pick up in the everyday stuff. You will not find it in the 86 or the 100 proof. You won't find it in any of the Whiskey Bros, but every now and then we find a single barrel that has it, and that's melon. It's this really weird melon note, and it's more like a honeydew, cantaloupe kind of melon situation, but it's right in the middle. Matt, are you finding melon?
That's interesting that you say that. It might be power suggestion, but I'm going to really look for it in this one now.
Now that you say it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's like tropical starburst. I don't know why I always refer to a candy like with these tasting notes, but like whatever. Deep down, I'm a 10-year-old. It's okay. But there's this like weird kiwi blend flavor of tropical starburst. I don't know exactly what it is, but it always reminds me of that. And there's a melon one that comes through. Every now and then you just get a melon note with Olfo. I don't know what it's from. It's very, very rare, but barrels for some reason had it, and they all had to be put together. Other than that, though, I think this one definitely reads the hottest, and maybe that's just because we're going up in proof. That's going to happen. But
right.
Periphery of your tongue, it definitely tingles a little bit more.
It does.
For sure.
Yeah, the first two
last forever on it.
The first two I felt really, I felt it a lot in the front of my tongue, even in the top of my mouth. But this one, that tingle goes from the front, it goes all the way back.
Yes.
So I'm definitely picking this up. And this one, actually, I get more of the oakiness on this one, especially on the finish. It seems like I pull out more of the that oaky. I don't want to say tannin. I mean, there's a little bit of a drier finish on this one than the first two.
No, you're exactly right. It is 100% a much drier and more tannic finish to it.
Okay.
There's sort of an element of like every now and then Old Forester has the sort of anise note that comes through. This one definitely gravitates on that on the finish, and that the woodsy notes of that really, really, really elevate that dryness. So, but yeah, this one definitely hits in a completely different spot on the palate. It's very peripheral.
Yeah. But it's good. But I have to agree, Jackie. Well, I shouldn't say it's good. It's great. I mean, I'm all three of these, but that first one, goodness gracious. As soon as I tasted that, I'm
telling y'all.
I'm like, I tasted the first one and I thought, if the other two are better than this one, then holy crap.
Yeah, then we're in trouble.
I don't know what I did. Like maybe, this is my first go around. So I hope everybody just has a little bit of grace for me in that. Like I'm not new to the industry by any means, but this is my first time of being handled barrels that I did not select, but barrels that I was then charged with sort of differentiating. And maybe I did just pull all the ones that I really liked and shoved them into the first one. And then after that was kind of like, what do I do with these two? No, it wasn't that at all. But batch one definitely speaks more to my personal palate. And I'm not a big spice head. I'm not a big rye whiskey person. You know what I mean? Like I don't like super proof stuff. Like batch one is beautiful and gorgeous in and of itself, but they're all great in their own way.
Yeah, but tomorrow morning I'm going to be watching those emails just to see if it is the release, and I'm going for batch one if I can track that one down. So, all right. So Matt, final thoughts on this one. We got to wrap this session up and move on to session 3. But what are your final thoughts on these 3 batches?
I think it's been such a treat to be able to try these, especially the story behind them. These were 150 barrels that were laid down and put aside 7+ years ago of perfect quality. Like what a real treat. Thank you, Jackie. We appreciate you being able to share that with us.
Letting me share with you.
Yeah, and I think that anybody out there is going to be absolutely lucky and truly blessed to catch any of these batches. But I think I have to kind of echo and resonate with everyone else and say I think batch 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I'm right there with you. All 3 of them, Jackie. Not that you need us to tell you that you did a great job on these, but we obviously both think you did a great job on these. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I mean, in all honesty, though, there is an entire team of people working day in, day out.
Sure.
making sure that every single drop of what we make meets our standards. And so it is not just me, it's everybody collectively that's part of the Brown-Forman Distillery family. So thank you to the Brown-Forman Distillery they are committing themselves to this. So
great. All right. Well, we'll take a quick break to get a word from our other sponsor, and we'll be right back with more from Jackie Zykan, master taster of Old Forester. So everybody sit tight. We'll be back in just a second.
Pinhooking is an old Kentucky term for purchasing young thoroughbreds, holding them until they mature, and selling them when they are ready to run. Successful pinhooks, much like whiskey, are made on instinct, experience, an appreciation of quality, and a little daring. Pinhook, straight bourbon whiskey.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final session, segment, round, whatever you want to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, Jackie. You can't laugh at me when I'm doing the intro.
I have to, because it's like after you sample like 4 whiskeys, you're like, yeah, welcome back to the whatever you want to call it.
Wherever we are, whatever's going on here, everybody, welcome back. Thanks for sticking. Oh wait, I can't say that. That's Matt's line. Matt, how are you doing over there, man?
Yeah, what's up, Matt?
Yeah, what about Matt? I'm doing great.
What's up, Matt? What's up, Rob Lowe? What's going on over there, Rob?
I am doing great. We are back for the third and final session. You've made it this far, so
yes,
stick around for the last pour. And welcome back. If you're driving, welcome back to your car. If you're at home, welcome back to your house. Anyway, we are back drinking with Jackie Zykan, the master taster of Old Forester, and we just finished up tasting her blends of the Old Forester 150th anniversary. We got to taste all 3 batches. Those should be out about any time now in markets when you're hearing this podcast. And those were 3 batches of, 3 batches, 150 barrels, and those were given to Jackie. Now what we are drinking are barrels that she has selected for the single barrel program. So Jackie, why don't you tell us a lot about that?
I love it. Tell us a lot. Tell us everything about that. So Old Forester is a brand that from day one was based on how can we achieve consistency. So George Garvin Brown was a pharmaceutical salesman who saw an opportunity in the realm of medicinal whiskey, if you will, and a whole landscape of people complaining that the whiskey they were getting from their retailers was inconsistent. It was either poor quality, or they would go in and get something filled up in a jug from a barrel, but next time they went in, it was different, obviously, because every barrel is kind of like a snowflake. So he saw it as, well, why don't we just blend from different distilleries and create this product that actually has a consistent flavor profile, and we'll seal it in a glass bottle to make sure no one messes with it. So it's kind of counterintuitive for Old Forester to do a single barrel if you really think about it, since that's kind of our like stake in the ground is consistency. But why not? Because these barrels are so great and so unique. So we've been doing this since 2013. I took over the single barrel program about 4 years ago, kind of bulldozed my way into it, but that's just my life, I guess, at this point. So it is what it is. But now, given this long fight I've had with legal, with our different development teams of sort of how can we change the program and make it a little bit more conducive to representing the best every barrel has to offer, as opposed to just being 90 proof, we've switched over to now offering a 100 proof option or a barrel strength option. And so that is what you will find. If you find a 90 proof Old Forester single barrel, buy it and keep it and share it with loved ones that are of legal drinking age, I guess is the best way I can describe it. We will not be making any more 90 proof single barrels. The only options are 100 proof or barrel strength. It is, to my knowledge, the only unfiltered barrel strength on the market for a single barrel product. So basically what you taste straight from the barrel is what you get straight in the bottle. And nice. We did it on purpose because I want to give people the freedom to be able to prove it down to the point that they enjoy it the most at. And not every single barrel is going to taste good at 90. Not every barrel is going to taste good at 100. And not every barrel is going to taste good at full-blown barrel strength. So at least we can give you full opportunity to find that sweet spot for yourself. So this switched over a couple months back, and we are full and ramped and rolling and ready to go with it. It's been so well received. And obviously we're selling 3 times as many barrel strengths as we are the 100 proofs, because this is shiny new enjoy. And like, we get that. I expect like the numbers will kind of like zhuzh out over time, but you have some examples with you. I don't have the exact same barrels that you have.
Right.
I have plenty of my own samples of 90, 100 and barrel strength. But
we've actually got, this is from Total Wine here in Lexington. Okay. This was their fall 2020 pick. And this one clocks in at 131 proof, which is right in my wheelhouse.
Nice. So yeah, that's an important thing to mention. So we cap the Old Forester barrel strength selections. Those barrels, if the proof of the barrel sample I pull is above 139.8, I put it automatically into the camp of you can only get it 100 proof, because if we go above that, we're in hazmat zone and we So no, please don't send an email saying like, now we want hazmat. Like, you wanted barrel strength, they gave you barrel strength, be satisfied with the barrel strength. Let's just go from there, please, for a little bit. We'll work on the rest of it until then. Like, at the end of the day, I just wanted to make sure we were giving people options, because if you're going to invest in an entire barrel under your liquor license, I want you to be happy with it, and it should be the best barrel that it can possibly be.
So that was really consumer or well, I say consumer, but I mean the people picking the barrels. So that decision was really driven.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I taste the stuff at barrel strength constantly. That's just part of the job. And so I don't think anything of it. But when people would come to the distillery and want to do selections, we let them drill into the barrel and like taste it straight in its raw form. And they would say, why can't we get it just like this?
Right.
And now and then you get a barrel where you're like, you know what? You're right. This is a shame. We shouldn't be adding water to this, but that's what our legal label laws are allowing us to do. So we just kind of, it's a brand that has done this over time. Like, the 86 proof Everyday Old Forester was released in response to blended whiskeys in the American market because the consumer palate changed. And so that's how you stay a sustainable brand with longevity, is that you have to listen to people and you have to be able to hold true to your core values, I think. And for us, that's quality and consistency. That's easy enough. You can ebb and flow and offer different products within that range that are really speaking to what people want. And if we've, I want people to know that, like, we hear you. Like, we love the people that support the brand, and like, we're happy to like do our damnedest, even though it took how many years, but we'll do our damnedest to give you what you want. I can't say like, I blame you. This shit's delicious. Like, I'm just going to say it like it is.
Yeah, it is. This one is, Matt, have you gotten into this one yet? Or
no, I've not. So why don't you go ahead, Mark, and let us know what you got here. I haven't been in. I'm too busy listening.
I don't, even with this, I don't pick up that alcohol. Now I've let this breathe for a while, so it may have dissipated. So I'm not picking up, as I would think, when you pour something that's 131 proof, you think you're going to get kind of overwhelmed initially with a little bit of that alcohol nose, but I really don't pick that up. I get like a dark stone fruit, or dark cherry on this one. I get a sweetness too, like a brown sugary kind of scent. Matt, what are you getting over? You're working it over, man. I see you.
I get a lot of butterscotch and like a wafer cracker coming through with this one. Like not a vanilla wafer, but like some sort of a neutral kind of cracker coming through with it.
Like a saltine?
Like an oyster cracker.
Elaborate. Are we oyster? Are we Ritz?
I know. That's
what's happening here?
I would say.
Is it like a town cracker or a club cracker? I mean,
a sociable.
Is it a sociable?
It's a sociable cracker. No.
Does it have like little sesame seeds in it, or I mean, what are we talking here, Matt? So, what about on the palate, Matt? What are you picking up on that one?
It's a lot sweeter than I was thinking it would be.
It is very sweet. It's surprising when you tell somebody you drink 131 proof bourbon and you say, "Oh, it's sweet." People are like, "What?"
Man, finish.
Yeah, that goes on.
Yeah,
it does. I get the kind of the cherry, but I almost get a little bit of a chocolatey type of flavor to it as well. But man, my tongue is absolutely tingling all over right now, which is awesome.
I'm picking. We mentioned in one of the 150th, I'm getting the strawberry on the palate with this one. Like quite a bit of the strawberry actually, which is unique. I've not had that.
So kind of a berry flavor. I get more of a cherry kind of, like I said, I picked it up on the nose. I get it on the palate as well with a little bit of chocolate to it. But man, I love the finish on this one. Goodness gracious. Yeah, this is really good. So Jackie, are you drinking a single barrel or you got?
I'm drinking two. Yeah. Why not?
We double fisted.
Also, I know, right? Yay! Anyone listening to this, I have a training right after this with some big group of bourbon connoisseurs. They're going to be like, "Why is she equally?" Well, because we'll see. So I'm actually sipping on a 90 proof versus a 100 proof. So I do kind of hide barrels like a little squirrel, like hide them off in the corner of my spreadsheet. When I taste through these barrels for the single barrel program, and every now and then I come across one where I'm like, oh, wait, that's a unicorn. Okay. Whether because it's weird, like there was one that tasted like grape big league chew gum. And I was like, that's fine. I am saving that barrel. This is weird. I'm doing something with this. So there was one that I and I have to name it. Like you got to put a name on the label, the personalization label for these. And this one is Melon Dramatic. It is nothing but that really cool melon note. And that's strength. And I'm tasting it side by side with the 90 proof of one that I called Holy Spice Bomb. And it's interesting because the heat on both of them is equal, like the perceived heat anyways. And that's between 90 proof and 100 and...
Wow.
Jesus, 133 proof. So yeah. It's amazing the way that ethanol presents itself sometimes from like barrel to barrel, but I don't know. So they're kind of weird. They're weird and wonky, but that's what's so great about single barrels is that they're all weird. They're meant to be weird.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what was the driving decision? Because a lot of people, if you get a barrel pick, you're going to go with a 1 proof, and you guys have barrel strength, or you have the 100 proof. What was the driving factor? Was it just, again, the people buying the barrels that were saying we want these options, or was that something you guys said we want to do that?
Well, so the 100 proof seems like a random stab, right? It seems like just like, oh, let's throw a number out there. But we did get a lot of feedback from people, especially in the on-premise, that wanted to use a single barrel for a specific cocktail, and they wanted 100 proof or above whiskey. And so there was a lot of pressure to do that. But I really did, after assessing all of these, there were so many times that I tasted a barrel after it was processed and was like, it's good, but it's lost its luster. It needs just a little bit more structure to it. And so 100 proof for Old Forester just worked better than 90 proof for Old Forester in this particular age range. And they're usually anywhere between 4 and 6 years old. And like, that's just kind of where we're at. Like, that's right.
Yeah.
What you guys are sipping on right now is about a 4.5-year-old whiskey.
That's crazy.
But that's heat cycling warehousing for you. Like, it just brings so much more out of the barrel. The barrel strength was 100%. We got to listen to the people, give the people what they want. I am not someone that comes home on a daily basis and is like, let me get that pure diesel fuel, whatever, full-blown barrel strength. No. But I sit here and my job is to make sure that the whiskey that we put in a bottle for you is free of defects, is the best that we can put out there. Not it's good because it's sweet or it's good because it's spicy. Good does not mean flavor notes. Good means defect-free whiskey. That's a totally different game. And so, yeah, I want to give you whatever you can have to find the whiskey that you're going to jive with. Like, I don't say drink it straight at barrel strength. Like, I'm not saying go ahead and do that, but at least like if that's what you want to do, like you've got the option, go do it. You do you. I'll be over here.
I appreciate that because me, I like to drink at barrel strength. So real quick, I know we got to let you get out of here because you got other things you got to take care of. But I wanted to ask you talked about the heating process that you guys do in your warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take a minute and just really briefly explain that so people listening understand really what it is you're talking about there?
Sure, totally. So Old Forester is one of the only brands, one of very few only brands on the market that does exclusively heat cycle their product. If you've had a chance to come down and visit us on Whiskey Row, that is a climate-controlled warehouse. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to our warehouses in Shively, Kentucky, which is just outside of Louisville. So every drop of Old Forester in a bottle on a shelf today, or in a bottle that doesn't make it to a shelf, has all come out of Shively. And so when I say heat cycling, this is not a new concept whatsoever. This wasn't like, oh, someone thought that this would be a great way to speed up the process. This is old school. George T. Stagg invented heat cycling. This is going way back. And everyone used to do it, but then they stopped because it costs money. And of course, like, you're in a business, so you're going to try to trim the fat as you can. For us, we actually divert steam that comes off of the production process of the still at BFD, Brown-Forman Distillery, through pipes to the warehouses. And that heats our radiators that are in the warehouse. So from October to April, we turn the heat on. We keep temperature probes on floors 1, 3, 5, and 7 of an 8-floor warehouse. We bring all of the temps up to a minimum 75 degrees Fahrenheit internal. So we keep probes in the barrels. And then we turn the heat off and let it drop. And as soon as all those probes reach 65 degrees Fahrenheit moving downward, then we turn the heat back on. So you get sort of this. The best way I can describe it is if you had a cup of hot water and you put a tea bag in it and just let it sit there. Eventually you're going to have tea, but it might take a second. If you dunked it, you're going to get that extraction much faster because you're including that movement that's in and out of your substrate. So for every year in heat cycled warehousing, you can add on 6 months of maturation just due to the extra extraction you're getting from the oak. Now, you can extract from oak in a faster way by doing oak chips, by doing little pieces of wood in there, increasing your surface area, using smaller barrels, like playing bass music to barrels. Like, everybody's got a different music, right? But what you're not taking into account with that is oxidation. And that's the key part of maturation of whiskey is oxidation over anything. And so with us, because of the process we use, we're losing more to the angel share. We're creating more headspace and we're getting more oxygen in there to affect flavor. So not only are you getting faster extraction out of the oak, you're also getting a more smooth and well-rounded flavor because of the increased oxidation going on. So all Old Forester is heat cycled. Cooper's Craft is heat cycled. Early times until we decided to sell it was heat cycled. Woodford Reserve is heat cycled. Jack Daniel's is not. So that is the one American whiskey in our portfolio that is not a heat cycled product, but you can taste it. Take a bottle of Olfo 86, just everyday Olfo, and taste it side by side with some of the competitors like Beam White Label, Four Roses Yellow Label, etc. Fill in the blank, whatever you want. These are your standard economically priced, if you want to, well-priced 4-year-old whiskeys. Taste it side by side. You're going to go, holy shit. There's twice the flavor in this as the other ones, and it's because of that heat cycled process.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that explanation. And I know our listeners do as well. And that's really cool that you guys are able to do that. So real quick too, I just want to ask you, anything coming up for you guys for Old Forester? Anything exciting? I know there's, look at you, like the mad scientist.
Yeah.
Well, like, you gotta keep in mind that we try to spread out our calendar so we don't drop everything at once, right? And like birthday given, right? That's September. It's always going to be September. This 150th product that we just released was supposed to be back in July. But because of COVID, we were like, who are we to release this like hoity whiskey expression in the middle of like the world burning down? So we held off on it as long as we could, but we were like, kind of got to get it out this year. So let's just pull the trigger. You have not seen the last of Old Forester surprises for the next year. I will say that some very big announcements coming up that are going to make a lot of y'all bourbon nerds very happy in the next few months. That's all. I can't say what, but I can say that we do have new things coming out within the next year that are incredibly exciting that we've never done before. And there's just never a dull moment on this brand. So
yeah. Well, awesome. Well, we're glad to hear that. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and make it a plan that we'll have to have Jackie back on.
Yes.
Or we'll make a trip. Hopefully all this stuff will be over. And we can make a trip over to the hour drive down I-64 over to Louisville to hang out and record the podcast live with you. So
for sure.
So if people are looking for you guys, Old Forester, where can they find you guys social media wise and everything?
Oh yeah. So at Old Forester, slew it all together into one word. If you're interested in my mundane life as a whiskey taster, you can find me at Jackie Zykan, all one word as well. Other than that, we touched on this in an earlier segment, but I definitely want to emphasize that if you want to get the latest on what is being released through the retail shop at Old Forester Distillery downtown on Whiskey Row, sign up for our emails. Go to the Old Forester website and sign up to receive our emails. That is where you will find all of that first come, first serve information on new expressions being released.
Yep. And I'm a member, or not a member, but I've signed up, so I get those emails myself. So it's a great thing. All right. So Jackie, before we wrap it up, I know we got to get you out of here. So anything you want to add before we close it out?
Just drink responsibly and be of legal age when you drink it. That's all I have to add. We've covered so much stuff, and I look forward to the next time we get to chat and talk all kinds of new fun things. So,
yeah. Well, thank you, Jackie, very much. Matt, before we close it out, anything you want to add?
Jackie, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down with us and talk about everything that you and that Old Forester have got going on, and for sharing especially the 150th anniversary blends with us. We really, that was a really special occasion to get to taste your 3 batches of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys enjoyed them, and I hope everyone listening gets a chance to try them at some point. And good luck. Good luck. Happy hunting.
Definitely. All right. So with that said, again, Jackie, I want to thank you as well. Thank you for hanging out with us and spending some time and drinking through. Oh my gosh, not too many. Never can have too much bourbon, right? So, but I have to thank our sip responsibly, drink responsibly.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do have to thank our sponsors, the Stave Restaurant, again, in Millville, Kentucky. They're great guys. Check them out online, thestavekentucky.com. And then also Pinhook Bourbon. Check them out at pinhookbourbon.com. And with that said, I'm going to send us home tonight with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.